Welcome back to another episode of the Find Food Freedom podcast. This is your host, Sam Previtt, and I'm very excited that you're here. We have not done a rapid fire episode in a really long time, probably, definitely over a month, probably 2 months ago. And I really like these episodes because they challenge me to really hone in on, okay, if somebody asks a question, how would I respond to it? Now, please know that with these rapid fire episodes, I have basically zero context of, what this person looks like, what their life situation is like, um, you know, what their medical disease or conditions are. I know nothing about this person, right? This is one little blurb on an Instagram question box. And I say that because technically speaking, as I've said many times, that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. So this is not in place of medical advice, right? When someone throws me a question on Instagram, I cannot legally give them medical nutrition therapy and medical advice. This is my opinion. This is where my head goes the first time I see like whatever they're saying. But please know that I don't have a lot of context. So take what serves you, leave the rest behind here today. And hoping because they are rapid fire questions and answers, we can cover a lot today. We're going to cover a lot, but we're going to cover it quickly. So it's different than some of the episodes where I'm talking about one, overarching theme and really digging deep. These are very, very, very quick answers. So before we do that, gotta get started with the Find Food Freedom wins of the week. We're gonna do two today, and these are usually DMs and messages that I get on our Instagram of people that are in our online community and sharing really, really great stuff with us. So if you've been listening to the pod over the past few weeks, you've seen that we have an amazing team at Find Food Freedom of dietitians that have joined us this month. They've hit the ground running, truly, with their client load. And what I mean by that is a lot of them are already full. So that's something to keep in mind. I feel like more growth coming soon to the team. But I want to share, I've been getting so many DMs of people from our online community that got their insurance benefits checked, that went and met with these amazing providers that are on our team now, and just getting so much great feedback. So one DM that I got was somebody who worked with our dietitian, Alex. And she said, just had my initial one-on-one with Alex with like a bunch of emojis. She's amazing and so compassionate. Thank you so much for taking insurance. I have 100% coverage and unlimited sessions with a bunch of exclamation points. And this is something to celebrate because I can't tell you how many people have told me they thought that they didn't have coverage. They thought that their insurance, they're like, oh, I have shitty insurance. Like, there's no way I have coverage. And then they get their benefits checked and they find out they have unlimited free sessions or 10 sessions or 3 sessions or anything. And I cannot stress enough to get your benefits checked. And you can do that by whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on TikTok, you can click the link in our bio and you will see the link right there. Or you can always go to findfoodfreedomresources.com and that'll get you the button that says get your benefits checked. Another one was a conversation I was having in the DMs with one of our clients. And she said, I just met with Eden. She is so lovely with a bunch of, again, emojis, and said, I am so, so grateful for y'all. You've created such a happy place. And again, like these are the messages that keep me going, that make me recognize like we have had over 100 people in 3.5 weeks book sessions with our team of providers that may have never had the opportunity to work with a dietitian, a weight inclusive dietitian. And so now not only are these dietitians on our team who are freaking amazing getting to work with people who want this care so badly, but the clients are getting to work with providers who are so amazing, that are that are rooted in intuitive eating, health at every size, weight inclusive care. And it's so cool to step back and watch it. It's been a lot of back end work. I feel like I'm like a um, technical account manager now working in tech with the amount of stuff that's been happening. But it is so freaking cool when you're getting messages like this. So I just want to thank you for those of you who have been DMing with us. I want to congratulate those of you who have gotten your benefits checked and see that you have coverage. So if you're listening to this, there is truly no reason not to get your benefits checked, because the worst that would happen is it comes back with no coverage. And in that case, we're offering extreme cash pay discounts to anyone who doesn't have coverage, because clearly you want the support, you need the support, and we want to help you get that support with our team. So those are the Find Food Freedom wins of the week. Really excited about those. Now, without further ado, we got to jump into these rapid fire questions. And I feel like I'm going to be a little rusty because I've been used to sticking on theme with one topic for an episode. And one of our amazing team members, Grace, she helps us out a ton with the podcast. And she was laughing at me because I was like, I feel like I need to get like a buzzer or set a timer for these rapid fire episodes, because it would really force me to pare down the information and be very specific. So I am going to try the best I can. Okay. So here we go. Remember, informational, educational purposes only. Uh, this is not professional support. This is not in place of working with a professional. It's just the first thing that comes up for me when I read these questions. All right. First one here. Someone said, seeing old photos of me and comparing myself. I was much thinner in the past, but realizing that I was still unhappy in that body. Whoa, this is such a good one because I know so many people can relate to this. So we just did a previous episode. I want to say it was either 1 or 2 weeks ago, where it said how to stop fearing weight gain. That was the entire episode. So I feel like I really want to encourage anyone who can relate to what I just said to go back and listen to that episode. And I really want to acknowledge it's that comparison trap, but it's not even to other people, right? It's to ourselves. But the one thing I think that is so profound that this person said, they said, I was much thinner, but I'm realizing now I was still very unhappy. And that's what we see when we work with clients who are shifting their relationship with their body. That body image has everything to do with the brain and nothing to do with the physical body. So the body might change, right? The body might become smaller, but we still look in the mirror and say, it's not good enough, right? I want to lose 5 more pounds. I want to lose 10 more pounds. I want to lose 20 more pounds. I still hate my arms. I still don't like my stomach. And I think that these are really, really important things to take note of, to recognize that the body is changing and yet I'm still unhappy. And that's where, once we have that awareness, that's where the change can start to happen. Body image work is not about changing the body. That's what diet culture tells us. It's about learning how to be empathetic and compassionate towards yourself and speaking to yourself, your own physical body, how you would a loved one or someone that you respect. And so I want to validate how hard this can be to have this self comparison, but I also really want to encourage this person or anyone who relates to this to go back to the how to stop fearing weight gain episode, because that really gets to the core of the beliefs that we hold about bodies, and we have to start challenging those beliefs and shifting those beliefs to get to a place of acceptance. All right. Whoo. Ding, ding, ding. Next one. I'm going to get a buzzer. I'm going to find one on Amazon. I promise. Okay. Next one. Someone said, trying to fully listen to my body. Just period. End of sentence. That's all I got here. That could mean so many different things. But what comes up for me when I read this, right? Someone saying their biggest obstacle right now is trying to fully listen to their body. The concept of listening to our body can be so foreign when we're coming from diet culture, because We are wrapped up in external rules, right? Calorie counts, the scale, macros, portion sizes, you name it. And so when we come over to this space and this paradigm of trying to quiet the external noise and listen to what's within, first of all, it can feel like, nope, no way, can't do that. That's literally impossible. But it's very foreign and it's very scary. And so I want to acknowledge that depending on where you're at in your journey, you might feel like that's not even like an option. But I do want to encourage people that as you continue to walk an intuitive eating journey and walk away from dieting, the external noise starts to soften and really disappear because you stop paying attention to it, you stop giving it power. And with that, you're able to listen to yourself and listen to what your body's wanting without judgment, without fear. And this takes so much time. This is very hard work. Like I don't want to come off as like, oh, listening to your body, it's easy. There's a lot of unlearning that has to happen. And I think that sometimes on social media, intuitive eating can get very misconstrued of people who are like, well, if I was listening to my body, then I would just eat everything and anything. And again, because we have to unpack that diet culture first, right? We have to walk away from dieting. We have to walk away from subscribing to all of the external bullshit. So that's what comes up for me. If I had my buzzer ding, I would ding it right now. All right, next one, wanting to exercise, but also allowing rest days. This is such a beautiful one. And we have an amazing um, we have a couple amazing resources in our Find Food Freedom membership all about movement. Like I want to say, oh gosh, there's probably at least 3 previously recorded master classes where we dig deep into that. But I want to acknowledge for whoever's listening to this, every single one of us have a different relationship with movement. And so when you're coming to this conversation, the lived experiences you have around movement are going to be different than mine. And something you might find joyful, I might not find joyful when it comes to movement. But I really want to drill home that every single human needs rest. Rest is productive. Rest is one thing that if you are working with a trainer, if you are working with anyone and they say like no rest days or like no pain, no gain, I'm here to tell you that that is BS and rest is important. Rest is necessary for our body. So making sure that when you are working on your relationship with movement, that you have professionals around you in place that you do trust. And a lot of times with intuitive eating, I think because it's called intuitive eating, people don't think about movement being a part of this conversation. But one of the principles is movement to feel the difference. And we talk about that relationship to movement, just like you have a relationship with food, just like you have a relationship with your body, right? Or with alcohol or with anybody. Like everything in this world is a relationship. So the more that you can look at your relationship to movement and get curious about why it is the way it is, the more we can unpack that and find ways to enjoy movement. And again, what that means for you might look very, very different than for me, but also allowing yourself to rest with no guilt and no shame. So, boom, next one. Okay, I overate this weekend, like bad, and I feel really guilty about it. And now I need to get back on track. Okay. So again, I have no context with this person's message that they wrote in here, but I do have context in the sense that they wrote, "I need to air quotes get back on track." That to me is very that is language that I used to use when I was in diet culture because when you're dieting, you're either on or off the diet, right? You're either on the wagon, off the wagon. It's very black and white. It's very all or nothing. And so a big part of intuitive eating is instead of being good or bad, all or nothing, right? Restrictive or binging, you are eating, period. And you're looking at every eating experience as an opportunity to learn something about your body. So, for example, if I were to overeat, which hello, I'm a human, so that's going to happen. And when I use the word overeat, I'm saying it because this person wrote it in. What I mean is, if I were to eat to a place of feeling physically unpleasant, old version of me would also couple that with emotional and like mental unpleasantness. And I would, berate myself. How could you do this? You're so disgusting. You're such a pig. See, you're so out of control, blah, 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 blah. Now, when I consume to a place of physical unpleasantness, I'm simply a neutral observer. And I say, hmm, what's going on? Like, why did this happen? And it could be many different reasons, right? It could be one, I went a really long time without eating. Maybe I got busy. Maybe I had errands, whatever, lots of meetings. And by the time I got in front of food, I was so hungry that I consumed food very urgently, very quickly, and I ate past a point of physical pleasantness. Totally normal. That's a normal human experience. Maybe I'm at a restaurant and I'm enjoying a meal and it is so delicious. And I can feel myself getting full, but I say, you know what? I don't give a shit. I want to keep going. I want to keep going. This meal is so good. Guess what? You're allowed to do that. Yep. And doesn't make you a bad person, makes you a human. And sometimes we do that. And sometimes you might feel the fullness coming and you say, I'm good. I don't want to continue, but maybe sometimes you do. Maybe it's a very, let's third example, maybe I'm very emotional and I have other coping mechanisms that I could turn to, whether it's sadness, boredom, anxiety, whatever it is. And for whatever reason, I choose to not trial some of these other coping mechanisms. And I know that my good friends, Ben and Jerry, are in the fridge. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to eat this pint. And because I want to, and it's going to make me distracted and it's going to make me feel pleasant in the moment. Guess what? Normal human experience. Doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't mean that you are air quotes bad at intuitive eating. Doesn't mean you're off the wagon. Those are all scenarios that tell us something. And the more that we look at ourselves from a neutral perspective and say, what's going on here? Then we can assess the situation, see why it happened, and then again come from a neutral perspective of what would I do differently in the future. So if I could, not because I wish I didn't do that, or again, no negative view, just saying if I could, I can't go back in time, but if I could, what would I do differently and why? And the more we build awareness around this, it is so helpful. And again, we just kind of covered a bunch of different scenarios very quickly, but I want to wrap this with a bow to say overeating is and I'm using that word again because this person had wrote in and used the word overeat. I don't really use the word overeat in practice because I feel like it still has morality tied to it. I usually say if you have ate to a place of physical unpleasantness, that is a completely normal part of being a human. What is not, I don't want to say not normal, but what I would want you to raise a flag to is if you're coupling that with emotional and mental unpleasantness and telling yourself, I'm such a bad person, I'm disgusting, see, this is why I need to be on a diet. That is what we need to be aware of. And we can uncouple those and we can start to really dig into why is this happening. And so, as someone who used to be very disordered, now would consider myself absolutely an intuitive eater with food freedom. It's not that I never eat to a place of physical unpleasantness. It definitely happens way less frequently than it did when I was restricting and binging and doing all of those things. But now I have self-compassion, right? I have self-awareness. Um I'm able to dig into these situations from a neutral perspective and say, what's going on? All right, next up. my uncomfortable emotions are making me feel like I can justify restricting. This, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this person wrote this in. This is actually a perfect segue from what we were just talking about, excuse me, because the last example that I gave was, what if I'm feeling emotions and I want to turn to Ben and Jerry and get lost in food? And that is something that I very, very commonly did when I was disordered, is I would use food as a coping mechanism, which again is normal. It's not about not doing that, but it's about having other coping mechanisms in addition to food that can support you when you really look at, okay, what do I need right now? And you can rule out physical hunger. It's like, I'm not hungry. I'm eating to serve a purpose, right? To fill a need. And so, just like eating to a place of physical unpleasantness can be a coping mechanism, what also can be a coping mechanism is restricting for some people. Now, this is different in the sense of restricting when we're doing it, it's giving us a false sense of control, right? Because we find that if there's very uncomfortable emotions that we don't want to feel, that restricting food allows us to pick up a rug, brush those emotions under the rug, and say, I'm going to control my food. And so I'm here to tell you that that's going to lead to being more out of control around food, because it's going to make us be obsessed with food because we are going to be very hungry. And it will always lead us, excuse me, to being out of control around food and making us feel like food controls our every thought. So I want to validate this person. And I also just want to say that all of these things that were written in, you to every single one of these people, the awareness is so key. The fact that people are writing this in and are aware, and if you're able to connect to that and say, I also do that. Like when I feel uncomfortable, I try to justify my restricting, or I justify my binging, or whatever it is. That is so normal. And the more that you normalize it, the more that you talk about it, the more that you bring awareness to it, the less shame you're going to feel around it. And that's where we can start to make the change. All right, next up, body fluctuations/changes during the menstrual cycle. Here to tell you, that is normal, right? And I think sometimes some of the most helpful advice that I've ever gotten for any situation I've gone through is recognizing that so much of this is normal. Like I forget what podcast I was on, but they were asking me about like bloating during your period and different times in the month, and how you can avoid that. And I'm like, no, we can't. We can't avoid that. That is a normal part of being a woman and having a uterus and ovaries and a menstrual cycle. And it is hard being a woman. And so I think this goes back to this person. What they're saying is, because the way I wrote the question box, right, is like, what are your biggest obstacles? And this person said, my biggest obstacle is my body fluctuating and the changes each month. So normalizing it and recognizing that at the core of that, what are we saying? We're saying that when my body gets bigger or when my body changes month to month, it makes me uncomfortable, right? I don't like it. And so then I would dig deeper there and say, well, then what do you think about larger bodies? And that is such an important question. And again, this actually is similar to the earlier question we dug into, the first one. I would recommend going back to the podcast episode we recorded 1 or 2 weeks ago, how to stop fearing weight gain, because that's what this is really all about, right? Whether doesn't matter if it's your period, doesn't matter if you're pregnant, doesn't matter if none of the above are true for you and your body is gaining weight. Why are we fearing it, right? What are our beliefs about bodies changing? That's where we need to dig in. And I think whether, again, doesn't matter why the body's changing, it's important to go back to that belief system. All right, we got two more left. I feel like I'm turning through them. Okay, now that I feel fullness, I was upset with how quick I became full at eating at a Mexican restaurant. This needs to be like on a shirt, like grieving my fullness cues or something. And the reason why I say this is because, okay, first of all, Mexican food is absolutely one of my favorite. Like, give me a chicken quesadilla, bottomless chips and salsa queso, avocado, guac, and a marg, or right now a virgin margarita, and your girl is happy as can be. And I too get really upset with how full I get at a Mexican restaurant because it's like this food genuinely makes me so happy and it's so delicious and I want to keep eating it. And this is something that we talk about with clients when you are learning to respect your fullness and feel your fullness and listen to it. It can come with sadness, with grief, with like, oh, this sucks. Because when we were in diet culture, there was a lust that came with this food, right? Like, I can't have it. I'm not allowed to have this. Or like when you would start to eat Mexican food, let's say bottomless chips and salsa, whatever that thing is, that's when you were air quotes being bad, right? That's when you said, fuck it. I'm going to eat whatever I want as much as I want because tomorrow I'm not allowed to eat this. And something feels sexy about being bad in the moment. And that's this like disordered relationship with food can be so funky because once we're allowed to have all foods and we really believe it and we start to get it, it's like, oh, hmm, this isn't as exciting. And it's not because we want to ruin food for you. And it's not because that doesn't mean that you're never going to enjoy Mexican food or whatever that food is. But it's because the food becomes just food. And so I want to validate this person and say, like, this is actually a sign of progress in your journey and it's normal. A lot of people report food boredom when they start to make peace with food because, again, there's like that lack of urgency. And it's really, really, again, it's a positive thing that it's happening, but it's not fun. And so I think that's why working with a registered dietitian, a certified intuitive eating counselor who can help you through that and help come up with ways that are going to make food fun for you and work through those emotions is really important. And again, that's going to look different for everybody. Okay, last one here. Okay, balancing and treating my PCOS, not restricting because I fear binging again. Okay. PCOS and or any medical disease or condition out there, I want to start by saying you can pursue an intuitive eating journey and have PCOS and have diabetes and have cancer, autoimmune, you name it. All of our dietitians are registered dietitians and have had over 1,400 hours of clinical supervision, sat for a national board, you name it. Two of our dietitians on staff, Emily and Alex, also specialize with PCOS. So they have worked with a numerous amount of clients that have been diagnosed with PCOS. And one thing I'll say with PCOS is I feel like from from a professional standpoint, what I'm trying to say is I see so much bullshit on the internet, especially, I hate to say it, but of dietitians who try to put those kind of clickbaity um, topics out there of like what you should be eating with PCOS and avoid this and avoid that. And you can't eat gluten, you can't eat sugar, you can't eat dairy, you can't. That's bullshit. I'm just calling it straight up. So if you do have PCOS and you've worked with someone who's told you that before, my deepest, sincerest apologies. And I really want to encourage you to come work with our team who's going to help take away the morality with food and help you again listen to your body. This is coming full circle today, and trust that we can increase nutrient density. We can increase the fueling and the nourishing throughout the day to balance blood sugar. We can look at medical nutrition therapy and how you're pairing your macronutrients together to really help with digestion and make you feel most energized in your body, because there's a lot of crashes that happen with PCOS. Very similar, like when I think about PCOS, I think of how we support clients with diabetes, and there's a lot of similarities of the education, the medical nutrition therapy that is paired with the intuitive eating piece that we do. So I say all this, I want to wrap it with a bow. Doesn't matter if you have PCOS, doesn't matter if you have diabetes, whatever medical nutrition, whatever medical disease or condition you have, I want you to hear that medical nutrition therapy is a part of intuitive eating, and you have to, have peace with food to be able to implement different medical nutrition therapy techniques. Because if we go straight to medical nutrition therapy and discard the relationship with food, it gets really, really, it feels really icky. And so I thank you to this person who wrote this in, and to anybody who is struggling with a lab value out of normal range or a new diagnosis. I really want to encourage you to look at the intuitive eating paradigm as an option, because it helps you feel physically, mentally, and emotionally pleasant in your body. And so, as registered dietitians, we do not look at a medical disease and condition and say, oh, well, we're just going to discard this because it's intuitive eating. No, it's a part of the process. And again, I think I feel tainted by that because I see so many people spreading misinformation on the internet, not knowing what intuitive eating is and thinking that those of us who practice it are not practicing ethically and including medical nutrition therapy into the conversation. All right. Ooh, we got to take a deep breath here, right? In through the nose, out through the mouth. All right, so we just wrapped up another rapid fire episode. If there was something in particular that you heard that you were like, ooh, I want more on that, whatever that was, because we covered a lot, I really want to encourage you to scroll through our podcast episodes on the Find Food Freedom podcast, because we have so many different episodes that cover very niche topics where an entire episode is dedicated to one question instead of this rapid fire style that we did today. If you are looking for support, please know that we have a variety of support options with our team. So you can click the link in any of our social media bios, or you can go to findfoodfreedomresources.com and you're going to see all things Find Food Freedom there. So please, please, please take what serves you, leave the rest behind. And I thank you so much for being here with me today.